Welcome back to Venture Brothers. Ooh, we're here with the beginning of episode 12, Trial of the Monarch. And this is going to be one of the best ever. We are peaking at this season, although we're not peaked yet because there's one more episode after this. But this episode truly has some brilliant quotes, some great things that are just coming up here today. We're going to have some great, just a brilliant time, honestly, everybody. I'm glad we're here. Let's get into this episode, Trial of the Monarch. I am really hyped for this because it's one of my favorite episodes in the whole series. Let's get into it, though. We begin with the episode cutting into what looks like a cave, and it's Hank and Dean who are trying to get into a treasure chest, it seems. And Hank's like, it might be booby-trapped. Booby. Hank. Still a child and still fun with jokes that are the most, the funniest, but also some of the childish. And anyways, Dean's like, don't worry, that's why I got my trusty penknife. And Hank's like, those are nail clippers, Dean. And so Dean somehow unlocks this lock with those nail clippers, and they're like, oh god, treasure. And they're like, it's macaroni and little candies and stuff, and it's a bunch of really random stuff, some googly eyes that Hank's like, I'm gonna take those. And then they find this stone tablet that Dean's like, it's in Sanskrit, dialect I don't understand. Hank's like, well, try to read it. And Dean reads it out, which is essentially, if you mess with my rainy day craft box, then you're going to face the curse. And as he's saying this, you can see a statue come to life from the background. And then, they're like, oh my god, statue, cursed treasure. And they yell for Brock, and then it shows Brock and Helper, who look way cool, by the way, right now. And they're like, the boys are in trouble. And Dean's like, give him back the googly eyes. And Hank's like, no, I can take him. And then Brock runs in there and is like, I got you. And right as he runs in there, though, he hits the statue's arm, and the arm just falls off. And the statue's like, whoa, my arm fell off. I can't believe it did that. And then Brock just starts wailing on him, takes his arm and starts hitting him in the balls with it. And Hank's like, stop hitting yourself. And the fucking statue's like, stop that. Oh no, oh my god. So brutal. And then Monarch shows up, who looks super crazy badass right now, and is like, while you were busy castrating his priceless antique, I was busy systematically feeding babies to hungry, mutated puppies. Not likely, Monarch. Brock is apparently not convinced that Monarch would do such an evil act, although I'm not either. That seems a little too hardcore for the Monarch, and a little just over the top. And then Monarch's like, silence, and then uses a eye beam to freeze Brock, which is like, what the fuck? And then Dean and Hank are like, you know what this means? Mecha Shiva. And then they turn into robots, slim parts, and combine. I think Dean's the torso and Hank's the bottom. I think. Sort of. Apparently, so Hank's the torso bottom, but Dean's the torso top. When they combine, they create a V, and they create this robot venture bot. And they're like, Mecha Shiva, Mecha Shiva, Mecha Shiva. And then it cuts into what we're actually dealing with this episode, which is a courtroom, and Monarch being like, they're totally lying. And then it's like, okay, when Dean said he can read Sanskrit, I was like, alright, whatever. And when Hank was like, I want a piece of him, it was like, fine, okay. But Mecha Shiva, they're totally obviously lying. I'm totally innocent. And the judge is like, order in the court. And I just want to say, we're in this trial now, and it's Rusty, Brock, and apparently the boys, and Monarch. I was just thinking about how, why they call the boys up as witnesses. Obviously, it's probably for his character, to talk about Monarch's character. But you would think they'd use Rusty, but then it's well, Rusty possibly refused. But then why is Rusty there? And he kind of makes a point in this episode that he wants to see Monarch go down because, Monarch's his rival, and he's like, fuck him. Sorry. But it doesn't make any sense. It is what I really don't understand. Why are the boys being on the witness stand? And if it's like to talk about his character, why isn't Rusty or Brock being used? Brock, it kind of makes sense. He's a secret government agent and probably can't talk about shit. And Rusty, other than him just being an asshole and not wanting to participate because he doesn't want to get involved because he's an ass and also just lazy, I don't really understand why he wouldn't want to participate, though, is the thing. Okay, and then it cuts in, so it doesn't do an intro this episode, it just goes like, Venture Brothers, here we are, and goes into what looks like a dude in a guild outfit walking up to 2 security guards in front of the courtroom. The guy is obviously Phantom Limb from the Tag Sailor episode, by the way. He's now coming into play. He's like, is this the trial of the Monarch, the people versus the Monarch? Like, you got the right room, but no one's allowed in. And he's like, I have every right to be here. And shows him a card, and as guy goes through the card, Lim grabs him, and he, like, gets all, like, crinkled up with all the veins and shit and dies, assumably. And then the other guy, like, goes to shoot him with a gun, but he grabs the gun, and then through the gun, Phantom Lim's arm power, like, kills him. And I wonder, how powerful is Phantom Lim's power? What is Phantom Lim's power? It's kind of vague, especially in the beginning, but then it's really vague when, as they, like, develop it, like, I kind of think I know what it is in the later seasons, but it's a little confusing here, because it's electricity, from what I understand, from later seasons. He's doing an electric attack of some kind. But then how did he do, I guess, metal, but it's weird what did he do to get through the pistol? I didn't know he could do that. You just he grabs your gun and he can still get you? That's effed up. You should have to grab my actual physical body. In my opinion, his power's a little OP. He mentions how he calls up his guild friends, Phantom Limb does, and is like, I need a pickup for 375 pounds. And then kicks the dead body of the big guy and is like, maybe more. Such an asshole, but hilarious nonetheless. Then we have Monarch talking to the jury and questioning Hank, who's still on the witness stand. And Monarch is like, how does it feel like to be a liar with your pants constantly on fire? And then Dean's like, you're the liar. Well, I'm rubber and you're glue, and everything you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Monarch is such a childish, fun character who is so very, like, it's exactly how Rusty is in terms of, like, how he deals with his villains. And he's so confident, too, as he deals with this situation. Really, it's funny how much he doesn't give a shit. And because Monarch is messing with Dean, the judge calls a recess and brings the attorneys into the office, which Monarch is apparently representing himself. And the judge is basically chastising him for jumping up and down on thin ice because he keeps fucking being asked to all his witnesses, which I get. Monarch is kind of insane. And the judge even says, like, I would have had you in change, but this is a jury by your peers. And Monarch actually makes a fair point. He freaks out about, like, you call that worthless group of people your peers. And I've always wondered that. Like, when I go to, a jury or a trial, and they bring a jury, and they say it's my peers, and I'm like, these are just people who live in my town, who I probably never met, never going to meet, and they're almost as much of a stranger to me as if someone were from fucking the next town over. But I guess it's because they're supposed to be interested in the community, but America doesn't give a shit about community as much anymore. So societal thoughts about that doesn't make sense. It's all based on each individual's thought processes, which I guess that's the point, is that you bring multiple individuals into a trial and that makes everyone who thinks differently in order to create a different outcome, and that will be unique and also hopefully not miss anything in the prospect. But it just seemed weird calling them peers. They're not my peers. I don't know them. I don't care about them. No, they don't care about me. And it's hard to even say that they care about the society or community I'm in. They're here because they're fucking got a jury duty fucking letter in their mail, and they have to be here. And that they get a day off work. Or maybe they hate that they get a day off work. We don't know. They might love it or hate being here, but nonetheless, they're only here because they have to be, more or less. Maybe half of them actually care, but even those ones are very rare, and I would say they don't care for the reasons you hope for. It's not because of community or society. They care because it's an interesting drama and that they want to participate in something newsworthy in reality. I got on a tangent. Anyways, then Tiny Attorney walks in. Well, this big guy walks in and you can hear something kind of muffled through him. And then the big guy goes... and fucking... and then out of his tuxedo, a little guy pops out who is like apparently growing out of the big guy and is the actual mind of the body. It's a really confusing scenario, but intriguing nonetheless. And then so Tiny Attorney, who is this guy's name, is basically like, I can deal with these costume types. They're, you know, just hocus pocus crazy, but I can deal with it all. And because of my affliction, I'm usually pitted against them. Fucking Monarch, like, oh, you have an affliction? I didn't notice. Oh, no way. Such a dick. We go back to Dean and Hank, and they're chilling with their lunch bags, like the old school brown bags that you went to school with. Although I guess I should say you, when I don't know any of you, that I went to school with. And they're talking about how they have barf sandwiches in there. And egg salad. Okay, hold your breath, Dean. We're going in for the cookie. In my opinion, quite relatable. I didn't really like egg salad sandwiches. I kind of still don't, unless I make them myself. But it's just, I get going for the dessert. And so Rusty is talking about how he would have called the police on Monarch if he would have been allowed to. He never realized that he could just do that. And he gives the whole scenario, like, officer, there's a guy in a butterfly outfit shooting a laser beam at my robot. And it's so funny, because that's just a weird scenario to think about to tell the police. Brock mentions how you would still be waiting for the police, and how apparently the guild supplied them with new police vehicles last year. It's funny because Brock is all hypothetical, like, who do you think gave them police vehicles last year? And Rusty's like, my tax dollars. Hank's like, Santa Claus. No, it was the guild. And so basically how Brock explains, with Dean's help a little bit, how if you mess with because the guild's intertwined with the police, Monarch accidentally messing with the police means he messed with the guild, essentially. And that's why this trial is going down the way it's going down, because apparently Monarch stepped on some toes, apparently. Then we go to some of my favorite characters in the series, although they are truly side characters. Watch and Ward. Their names are not said in this beginning part, but that's who their names are. And we also have the Sovereign introduced, who is apparently the leader of the Guild of Calamitous Intent, which has been being built upon since Are You There, God's Me, Dean. They're told that we're on standby until it's time to attack. The guild is preparing something that's regarding the trial, obviously, and that's why they're just chilling here too, waiting now. One of the intriguing things that I've learned is that there's a bunch of random stuff in the monitors that is in this little room, and two of the monitors, two of the bigger ones, the two people who are on the phones. One of them, the one on the left, who is with the different hair colors, is Jason Publica, one of the makers and writers and voice director of Doc Venture. And the other one is, the one on the left is Doc Hammer, which is the voice of Dr. Girlfriend, Sergeant Hatred, and a few others. But on the right side is Jason Publica, the voice of Dr. Venture, and also the other maker, the two co-founders and makers of this series. And funny. There's also a few other random little pictures that I was intrigued by, but I've never really noticed. And this first interaction with Watch and Ward. So, after, I think Ward talks to the Sovereign, you can kind of hear a cannon crashing just as he's leaving the Sovereign's a message. And so he's like, way to make me look like a tool. What are you doing back there? And Watch is like, you seen my juice box? Oh god, that was yours? Great, why did I even put my initials on it? They're such fun characters, truly. It then goes to Phantom Limb, who is messing with a device, and this lady's like, watches him mess with this device, and is like, the hell is he doing? And so he's like, you care for some Pez? And she's like, oh no, I think it tastes like soap. Girl, I love pets. What are you talking about? Monarch is then talking to the jury, and he's like, I'm gonna call my next witness, the Monarch. And then he's like, so do I just go up there? Oh, anytime now, Monarch, please. And so Monarch gets up on the trial, and he's like, all right, this all started when after the flight of the Monarch was published. Then flashes back to his cocoon, and he's walks into his cocoon's control room, and is like, what is this? And then like holds up a book, and it has his face on it. And 24 is like, a book? You'd think it was a book, but it reads like a book. Here. And he reads a passage about how like he was rifling through his pockets and looking for change apparently, and then like shot one of his darts into his thigh and riled around and stuff is what it basically says. And as he's reading the book, 24 talks to 21 and is like, I told you so. I didn't know he'd find out. You're such a dick. You put his face on the cover. It's so funny to think about how 21 did one of the most dickish moves ever I could think of that caused this whole event to start. And Monarch's like, this is not a book. It's a suicide note. Good news, the executioner will be carried out by me. You can find me in my room, crying. And after a heart-to-heart, he says, which he's with his doctor girlfriend, and they're kind of just crying. Well, he's crying. Someone confessed, and someone like, there's a knock at the door, and the door opens, and this Monarch crew member falls over, and it's like with a little sticky note, like, I did it. And it's like, oh no. He's a dead man, though, unfortunately. And then Monarch talks about, like, it must have been hard for him to come to someone he saw as a mentor, but I punished him lightly. And then it shows that he apparently replaced his blood with acid and was trying to have sharks eat on him. But Dr. Girlfriend's like, you should have replaced his blood after this. The sharks won't touch him now. And then he's like, all right, lower the giant hair dryer. And the tiny attorney objects and is like, objection. And Rusty's like, the judge asks why. And Rusty's like, boring me to tears. Oh, man. And tiny attorney's like, relevance. This doesn't have anything to do with the whole police thing. And Monarch's like, I'm getting to that. Keep your pants on. Oh, you can't wear pants. Oh, I'm sorry. So brutal. It goes back into with the Monarch with yelling and that Dr. Girlfriend being like, who haven't you slept with? That's apparently a short list. Because apparently the problems of the flight of the Monarch was not over. So she's basically like, I dealt with some people before you. Like, obviously that's gonna be happening. And then he's like, yeah, there's all these pictures of you with Phantom Limb and Monstroso's. You're in Monstroso's lab, which is the first mention of Monstroso. And he's like, look at that lab. There's 5 of us on there, she says. And he was like, look at your outfit. I can see your dirty pillows. Such a weird reference to a Stephen King book. And Mrs. the Monarch, Dr. Girlfriend is like, I am leaving. If you cannot handle this, I am going to leave. And he's like, if you can't leave, I'm throwing you out. Get out of my house, you whore! Monarch. And he starts crying because, and it's funny because like some henchmen are like, you can see their faces shaking their head and shit. It's so fucking funny, and it's kind of a sad moment because it's like a real fight, you know. And it's just intriguing to me to think about how this is technically 21 and 24's fault for making that book, and like making it obviously the Monarch's type of book. And then goes to Dr. Girlfriend, who's like, he is lying because Monarch was obviously, he kind of mentions how like it was the last time he saw Dr. Girlfriend, but he was obviously lying about that. And Rusty does a whole like, oh really, that's a big surprise. Fucking Rusty. It then goes to a flashback of Dr. Girlfriend ringing the doorbell of Phantom Limb. She's soaked from the rain. Apparently they literally threw her out with nothing. I don't know if Monarch would have actually been down to do that. I'm surprised the henchmen allowed that. Granted, they are his henchmen, not hers. But it is surprising. And so she starts venting about the Monarch, about how he threw her out and how she used to be feared and respected and really powerful, and how she was Queen of she was Lady Au Pair, is what she was known as. And before that, she was Queen Etheria, apparently Phantom Limb's second in command. And he throws down her old costume, and she's like, I can't believe you kept it. And like, what are these hard chunks? And he's like, my tears. And Monarch freaks out in the courtroom and is like, he was fucking whacking his, he's wailing on his junk, beating his meat, and for that. And fucking Rusty freaks out and is like, whoa, 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 I have children, so here, you can't be doing that kind of potty mouth. And the judge is like, I want that stricken from the record. Am I mine? Dr. Venture, you might want to let your kids get out of here. I'm not going to take them anywhere. I'm not going to miss this. Brock, be a lamb and take the boys out. So funny. So Brock apparently has taken the boys outside the courtroom, which Phantom Limb then does a whole panic and is like, oh shit, they're not here. Delay blackout moment. And which goes to watching Ward again, and was like, what are you doing behind me? I thought you went to the bathroom. I already did. What, did you pee in the corner? That was like 5 seconds. What the hell? The interactions are so fun. But before that, sorry, I missed this. Dean, Hank is like, I don't want to leave. Dean tells me how he pounds his meat. And Brock cuts them off. He's like, let's go outside and see if we can find some adventure. God, it's such a like, whoa there. Yes, people masturbate, but whoa. It then goes back to the Hank and Dean after watching Ward's little event, where they're checking out a piece of gum, and Hank's like, the mystery person is a gum chewer, and they're like, it's a clue, and Brock's like, don't touch that clue, the clue's in somebody's mouth, and Hank defiantly just barely touches it. It's so funny. And Brock also kind of, as he's smoking a cigarette, which, real quick, derailing real quick, can you smoke cigarettes inside courtrooms? I know you can't anymore. And I don't think you could in 2003 or 4 when this show came out. It's very strange. I mean, it might be because he's Brock goddamn Samson, who does not care, and his henchman killer, Superman extraordinaire, literally has a license to kill mastermind of super mullet top monster. But it's just weird for him to be in a courtroom and smoking cigs. Anyways, Brock notices that the 2 guards in front of the door is not the same anymore, and that they look very suspicious. I mean, like, one of them is obviously like a robot guy. I think the other one's got a metal arm. It's fucking really suspicious. It goes back into the courtroom where Dr. Girlfriend was about to bring out a device of some kind, but Phantom Limb kind of gives her the signal to not do it, and so she's like, oh, I got my own handkerchief. And then she goes back to the flashback, which she's like, we were eating some kind of weird cheese, I don't even remember. And Phantom Limb is like, Asiago. I got a taste for this when I was in my time in Florence, Italy, He's such a pretentious douchebag. Such a dick. And then he straight up tries to feel her up, like her boobs up. She's in her old outfit, by the way, and the Etheria outfit, but that's only because her clothes were wet. I agree with her in that regard. And the only thing he offered was that. So it's kind of that whole weird, shitty scenario. And then Monarch's ringing the doorbell, so she goes to find him, and he's like, I knew you were here. The henchmen were like, oh, she went to her mother's, but I knew you went crawling back to him. And she's like, I had nowhere else to go, and he freaks out about her outfit and how, like, I can't believe you're wearing that again. She points out that I was wearing this when you met me. And he, of course, says, like, but that's because I got you out of that outfit within 5 minutes of meeting you. I made you the Monarch. And she, of course, bawls and starts crying. Because, goddammit, Monarch, that was an asshole-ish thing to say. And she even says, you're a monster, and tells him to go to hell and slams the door in his face. He screams and says fine, and the flashback goes back to Dr. Girlfriend, and Dr. Girlfriend's like, well, he kind of hung around yelling for like 10 minutes. And then I saw the flashing lights of the police, so I assumed someone must have called them, because apparently she didn't call them. And then nothing. And Tiny Attorney's like, nothing. And Monarch's like, nothing. So, according to Dr. Girlfriend's testimony, there was at least no sounds from her side that indicated that the Monarch had done anything to a police officer. Then it goes back to Hank and Dean, and Dean rips off of hair off of Hank's head and, like, licks it and then puts it on this door that they're looking in front of. And he's like, saliva is nature's glue. And Hank responds, and raisins are nature's candy. And Brock's like, gets this whole look on his face of like, what the fuck, kids? Because really, what the hell? And I realize that this is actually the part where he notices the strangers, but whatever. He just fucking puts out his cigarette as he's looking at them. And then Dr. Orpheus busts out of the door that Hank and Dean were in front of. And is like, I would not advise you to go in that room. I had Taco Bell for lunch. One of the best lines ever. Best. Dr. O has some of the most quotable, fun lines. And he's like, Dr. Orpheus, master witness. And he, like, magics opens the door and goes inside the courtroom and shit. And Dean was like, oh, so it was Dr. Orpheus the whole time. And fucking Hank's like, well, what does that mean? Brock's like, that means Dr. Orpheus needed to take a dump, so I guess good job, case closed. And then as Dr. Orpheus doing the trial, they present a Bible to him to do the whole I swear to tell the truth, and he's like, oh, cute, a Bible. I have my own little book for this ritual, which I think is a version of the Necronomicon, and it has like a face on it and everything, and he's like, careful to not put your fingers in there. He's a nibbler, that one. And the dude is like, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you, whatever? I swear it. I love Orpheus. He's such a fun character. Tiny Attorney starts off by asking him what his profession is. Like, are you some sort of magician? Orpheus is like, if you must call me that, yes. And it's funny because Rusty kind of does the whole, like, oh, they're in for it now. Because he's watching. It's so funny. Again, I would like to point out, they brought Orpheus to the fucking stand as a witness, but not Rusty. I can only assume at this point that Rusty has refused, because there's no way that they wouldn't. It makes no sense. Rusty's his main arch rival for years, decades. It does not make sense that if you're going to bring him to... Unless they know that Rusty might not follow through, because Rusty does know Monarch's character, and on that note, I don't think Rusty would believe that Monarch, vaporized a policeman unless he truly was provoked or something. It's weird to say. I just don't... It doesn't make sense. Why bring Dr. Orpheus? Why bring Dr. Orpheus? It doesn't make any sense unless Orpheus just invites himself. I don't know how that works. So Dr. Orpheus, who's answering the question about him being a magician, is like, if you must call me that, okay. But really, I'm more than just a card trick type of character. For if I reach behind your ear, it won't be a nickel I bring out, but your own very soul. And Rusty's like, good night, audience. You've been a great crowd. So funny. Such a great character. Such a brilliant little few lines. Watch this episode, everybody. Truly. And Tiny Attorney's like, this sounds all kind of crazy, hocus-pocusy, but it sounds kind of similar to how no one can remember what happened to the police officer that night. So, it's interesting how the Tiny Attorney is almost like, even though magic seems a little insane, we're being presented a really kind of insane scenario, so let's try to use some unorthodox methods to get this information. And then goes to Brock, who is in with Hank and Dean in the bathroom, kind of chilling and watching outdoors, and he's like, this is really strange, well, this is really weird, this whole place is crawling with strangers. And Hank is like, you can't expect to know everyone. No, Hank, strangers are guild operative. They work with precision, strength, and skill. Honestly, they're the only organization that I respect. And then Hank says, then they kill clean. Don't let dames get in the way. And Brock is like, seriously, Hank, where do you pick that stuff up? And even Dean's like, it's weird, right? Like, I never see you read. And Hank even himself is like, you think it's a cry for help? Like, Hank even personally is like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's something internally that I'm trying to tell people. Weird. Because it is weird. How does he get that information if it's not Brock, and it's not Rusty, and he doesn't read much, and he doesn't have TV as far as I know, or at least he doesn't watch much TV because he doesn't have time. It's weird where he gets that information. So fun. So they go back to the courtroom, and the tiny attorney is like, alright, so you're a type of mind reader. Could you, say, read the mind of the Monarch? And the Monarch objects, and the judge even is like, this is really unorthodox. Fucking Rusty, who, I'm surprised he's not put in contempt of court. I don't know how much he's allowed to say things. But he yells out and is like, unorthodox, the guy's in a butterfly costume. And the tiny attorney points out, I myself am growing from a simpleton. Like, shit, man. We live in a weird world here. So, sorry about that noise. The judge is like, I'll allow it. And Monarch's like, alright, do not go for the reach around. Because the Monarch doesn't swing that way. And then Dr. Orpheus puts him to sleep. And then you go to another flashback. This flashback has Monarch is taking a piss on the yard. Apparently he's had some beers and he's just been fucking around in front of their fucking yard. And the police guy comes out and he's like, I heard there was a domestic in the area. And the bro is like, well, Monarch is like, well, listen to me, Officer Poncharillo. My second in command just left me. So how about you get on your gay little bike and go home? Another beeswax. And then bro kind of Monarch kind of goes for like a punching, but he's obviously drunk, there's nothing he can do. And then a dart comes out of nowhere, hits Monarch in the neck, knocks him out. Guild operatives come out to pick up Monarch. One hands a case of money to this police officer, tells him that it's all there, do you want to count it? That'd be bad form, the police officer says. And like, we got you a new name and a new identity. And even a new wife. You won't be seeing her much. She's a supermodel. And he's like, awesome. And the guild operative's like, we hear your voice, see your face at all. And he's like, don't worry about it. I'm a ghost. And then they take the Monarch away. As Dr. Orpheus comes back, he's like, oh my god, I cannot believe what I've seen. And then Phantom Limb panics and is like, oh my god, go. And has the watch and ward immediately start the operation. And guild operatives bop in. And Brock's like, it's a freeze team, get on the ground and hold your breath. And like pushes the boys down on the ground. And it's like, Dean's like, there's pee-pee on the floor. Get on the ground and hold your breath, Dean. And then the freeze team comes in the courtroom, freezes them all up. And runs in there and grabs Tiny Attorney, number 3 on the guild's most wanted list. Time for the guild to put him through trial, separation. Cheesy one-liner, but fun. But apparently they've been after Tiny Attorney. It was 3rd on the guild's most wanted list. It's kind of unclear if this was the main goal or if getting Monarch is the actual main goal. The guild is obviously after Tiny Attorney, but Phantom Limb's influence in this makes it a little weird. Hard to say, though. The guild operatives also mention how they can't mind wipe the necromancer, but they can do a hypnotic suggestion. Phantom Limb notes that he knows this one and is like, he's part of the Venture clique, and I know that he's been trying to get an arch nemesis. And so he does a whole like whisper hypnotic shit where he's like, you know the Monarch did it. And if you put him away, we'll get you an arch villain. And Dr. Girlfriend freaks out and is like, you're putting the Monarch away? She apparently did not know that was going to be part of the plan. And I'm uncertain if that was ever truly part of the plan. Because it's like, there's no real reason to. If they were looking to get Tiny Attorney, if that was the stated main goal, they have succeeded at this point. There's no reason to have Monarch go away also. But that's just how things go. So Dr. Girlfriend's like, will that hypnotic suggestion work on him too? And Phantom Limb's like, yeah. So she suggests to Monarch that it was the Venture brothers who caused all this. And that Dr. Girlfriend had nothing to do with this. Which is intriguing too, because like, again, we're not sure her position. Did she know that this was all going to go down? How much, like, did she just join up with Phantom Limb's crew and she's just assisting with this? It just seems weird that Monarch would have to go down in this when, how would Limb know that was about to go down. It's strange. A guild operative knocks on the bathroom door and tells Brock that they appreciate his non-interference. Because indeed, if Brock had acted, and especially because he was fucking, like, awake, he could have straight up myrtleized this entire group. And he's like, no worries about it. We got 20 seconds and stuff. And the freeze undoes. And Dr. O is basically like, I hope they give me a redhead, a female villain. And Rusty's like, he's gonna blow it. Brock, when did you get back? What happened to the other attorney? Don't worry about it. And the judge asks Orpheus what you saw, and then Dr. Orpheus is like, I saw without a shadow of a doubt that the Monarch is guilty! Which, of course, is being framed and shit. The outro plays, which Mecha Shiva was the outro credits word, because fucking Mecha Shiva. The last scenes are, so Monarch's in jail, talking to a person, a Dr. Girlfriend, it looks like, and he's like, maybe in a few decades we'll finally be able to get through this. And then it cuts to who he's talking to, and it's actually 24 in a Dr. Girlfriend outfit. And he's like, can I go now? People are staring at me. Oh man, so brilliant. For the conclusion of this discussion for this episode, it's hard to discuss an episode with such high quality because there's nothing really on my side but praise. For me, this has a lot of the best quotes. This was an episode that was critical in my liking of the series in the early days, when season 1 was a fluctuating mess for me when it came to certain episodes, especially when I was younger and I couldn't appreciate certain things. But this was just a funny episode. It's funny, and it's also really important. The events in this episode are like the critical catalyst. Like this episode and the next episode, the last two episodes of season 1, are the core pieces that create the entire plot of season 2. Mostly this episode, honestly. Next episode's important, but it's nothing compared to the actual plotline that's formed from this episode, which is the whole Monarch is now in prison, and the dynamic around the breakup of Dr. Girlfriend and the Monarch. I also like how this episode uses 2124 a bit and a little more. It has Orpheus again, doing some of his best work, honestly, and also showing off his powers, and showing how this group, these supervillains and superheroes and magic abilities, do have a somewhat normalcy in the judge's world, the world of even real laws. Because while the judge was like, this is unorthodox, he was willing to allow a mind read. And yeah, Monarch is in a butterfly costume, but that doesn't necessarily mean magic should be involved. Like, Rusty makes a point of it being weird as fuck, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to take the word of magic. It seems weird, unless the world of magic and the world of super science and shit like that is commonplace in this world, which I'm assuming it must be. And that is the whole point of this series. Thank you guys, by the way, for joining me in this brilliant episode. Trial of the Monarch is truly top class. When I was first looking into doing something for Venture Brothers, one of the first things I wanted to do was actually a top 20 Venture episode tier list. And there was just some struggles when it came to editing with that, and copyright crap that I was just not willing to fuck around with too much. So I decided to just do the review series. Also because I just like the series so much that I was okay with talking about the entire series rather than just 20 episodes that I liked. But one of the things I realized when I was reviewing to create a top 20 list was that all the season finales, and a majority of the season premieres, but most of the season finales, definitely, in fact all of the season finales, were including this episode too, were part of my top 20 list. Trial of Monarch is just one of the best episodes in the series. Hands down a top 10, probably. I'd have to look at my list again. I don't remember what I decided, because it's hard to say. I just remember number 20 was Lepidopterus from season 3. And that number 1 was a season 6 episode? We'll get back to that. I have plenty of time to discuss my top 20 adventure episodes as I progress through this podcast series. So please like, comment, and subscribe if you are on the YouTube. Please continue to listen to the podcast and wherever you have your podcast, because I love discussing Venture Brothers with everybody. Anyone who wants to discuss it with me, though, definitely do the comments on the YouTube. I will be 100% willing to talk to you and through the comments and through texting comments, but I'll also even, maybe if you want to, I could mention your arguments on the podcast and the discussion, because that is really what I'm really looking for. I want to see what other people think, how the series is going and how good or not good it is. And actually, that's one of the key things. I want to see if anyone really thinks the series isn't good, and if it's not good to them, give me your reasons, because I could never even imagine the series not being good to someone, because it's fucking brilliant. The only way it could be is if you only watch season 1, and then I can only tell you that you just need to stick it out, man. Season 2 is where it gets magnificent, and then it never stops. Never stops. I'll see you in episode 13, the season finale of the season 1. Return to Spider Skull Island. Love y'all. Thank you for joining me. Supreme Fuzzler. Goodbye.